be better. I like disconnected from the Wi-Fi and reconnected and shut down every single app that I had open on my computer. I'm hoping that fixes it. If it doesn't, I don't really know what I'm going to do about that. I'll give people a second to like, now it says 0 viewers. See, it's lies. Liar. Is it any better now? It's better. Okay, good. I'm glad that worked. Good to know. It sounds a touch crunchy, but it's better. Okay, that's good to know. That is very good to know. Still issues, but not as bad. I hate when things don't work. Can I do this right now? I wonder if this will let me do this right now. Fuck. I'm trying to make it do the thing that it wants me to do. What does it mean? Hold on. Did that work? Fuck this. Hey, Queen. Google says make sure plugs aren't loose. We've got time. What do you need? It's better for me. It's just crackling. I wonder if I try a different mic. Hold on. Let's try something. The Twitch app, are we not on? What about that? Is that better or worse? Sound's gone. It's not lagging anymore. There's no sound. That's better. Perfect. Okay, that's so interesting. Okay, I'm using literally like not this expensive ass microphone. I'm literally using these random headphones. Whatever. Maybe I got water in that mic. Who fucking knows? We're here now. Women in tech. You probably won't be able to hear the game, but whatever. It happened. Okay. Cool. We're going to go ahead and get started. It doesn't work. And we tried our best. Anyway, Waco part 1. Sorry. That was really stressful and I didn't like it. It gave me, like, honestly, work PTSD because my job work is to fix technology when it's broken. And I literally never know how to do it. And it's like, I'm just, like, I don't fucking know. What do you want me to do? Okay. Are you trying to speak? Unmute. I'm not on mute. Whatever. It thinks I'm muted. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about David Koresh. David Koresh's first name is actually not David Koresh. His name is Vernon Wayne Howell. He was born in 1959, Houston, Texas, to a 14-year-old single mother, Bonnie Sue Clark, and 20-year-old father, Bobby Wayne Howell. So here's a pic of him as a child, looking pretty concerning from day one, I would have to say. Leos are sus. I'm glad that you guys can hear me better, and I'm glad to know that this mic works just as well. Whoop, whoop, that's sound of the police. Baby Vern. 14-year-old mother. Yeah, so that's disturbing. It gets more disturbing the more we go. So, like I said, born to a 14-year-old mother and 20-year-old father. Before Koresh was born, his father met another teenage girl and abandoned Bobby Sue, who began cohabitating with a violent alcoholic. In 1963, Koresh's mother left with her boyfriend and placed her 4-year-old son in the care of his maternal grandmother, Earlene Clark. His mother returned when he was 7 after her marriage to a carpenter named Roy Rattleman. Bonnie Sue and Hattleman had a son together named Roger, who was born in 1966, and Koresh did not meet his father until he was 17. So I'm not saying any of this to be like, oh, we should feel bad for him, but I am saying to be like, this is really like a no from me. Like, it's like, yeah, that's definitely fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, very much fucked up that this happened, and I could see where this would very much damage a person. Sarah, thank you for subscribing with Prime. You've been subscribed for 8 months. Oh my God. We love to see it. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. We love our subscribers. over here at me, only me, and just me. Where was I? Immediately fucked up. Exactly. 8-month queen. 8 months. 8 months is a long time. Like, if you were with someone for 8 months and you broke up, you'd definitely have feelings about it. You know what I mean? I didn't get a notification when you restarted. Well, we really didn't do that much, so I hope that it's okay. I'm really sorry. Mike too. Oh, right. It's me and he's over there. It's me and Mike. 14-year-old found another violent drunk to live with. If there's one thing in this life that I know, it's that there's no shortage of violent drunks willing to take advantage of young women. I think there's an unlimited amount of them. I think that we'll always have a surplus of that. So, Koresh described his early childhood as a lonely, due to his poor study skills and dyslexia, partially caused by poor eyesight. He was, and like, oh, I'm dyslexic. Okay. He was put in special education classes and nicknamed Vernie by his fellow students, and he dropped out of high school his junior year. Apparently, the others would also like say bad things about him. Apparently, when his mother like put him in special ed, she didn't tell him he was going to be in special ed. Sparkling Sweet Tea, thank you for resubscribing. She didn't tell him he was going to be special ed, and apparently it was like really traumatic when he figured it out. I don't really know. Ted Bundy was raised by horrible grandparents too. I'm seeing a pattern. Exactly. Is that who I'm thinking of? Yeah, Ted Bundy. There really is an unlimited amount. Yeah, exactly. So where was I? Yeah, he dropped out his junior year. So when he was 19 years old, he also had an illegal relationship with a 15-year-old girl who became pregnant. And also when that happened, he decided that his stance was going to be that he was sterile, so it's impossible that I could have gotten you pregnant because I can't get anyone pregnant. And then he just kind of ran away. So that's not really the mark of like someone who's very responsible, in my opinion. Where was I? He claimed to have become a born-again Christian in the Southern Baptist Church and soon joined his mother's denomination, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. There, Koresh, he's still Vernon Howell at this point. I'm using Koresh because I just don't want to be confusing, but it's his still Vernon Howell, and I will explicitly tell you when he changes his name, and it's not for a very long time. Just wanted to give you that. Sir, be fucking for real. That feeling when you decide you simply can't make a baby. He's like, I didn't want that, so I don't think that was me. Are you sure? That doesn't sound like something I would do. I think you must have me mistaken with somebody else. That could not be me. Where was I? There, Koresh became infatuated with the pastor's daughter, and while praying for guidance, he opened his eyes and allegedly found the Bible open to 34:16, stating that none should want for her mate. Convinced that this was a sign from God, Koresh approached the pastor. Imagine the fucking balls to approach the pastor and told him that God wanted him to have his daughter as a wife. The pastor threw him out, and when he continued to persist in his pursuit of the daughter, he was expelled from the congregation. Like, girl, what the fuck? My ex and I got pregnant, and he told me to have an abortion. When my ex and I got pregnant, I had to have an abortion. He told me it was impossible because when he was 6, his brother hit him in the balls with a golf club. I am begging the school system to provide even 5 minutes of sex ed. Let's start with 5 minutes. Right here, Pastor W. Shit, I'm late. I hope I don't get detention. When the pastor throws you out, that's when you know. I love when the most random people think God is giving them signs. Like, why on earth would God try to talk to your random ass? Extremely rare, Pastor W. So random, men are all trash. It wasn't just him. We were like 18. He was my first boyfriend. Glad that it got out of there. Was it in the South? I don't know if this was in the South, actually. He moved around a little bit. The pastor was like, good luck, bride. That feeling when the pastor doesn't let you marry his underage daughter, so you start a cult so that you get to marry unlimited underage daughters? Hashtag Andrew Tate vibes. There's this guy at work that always talks about how much I love Andrew Tate because he knows that I hate Andrew Tate. I hate men so much. Cluttered Rainbow, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Oh no, just a regular subscribe. We love a regular subscribe. I also feel like this is such a bullshit excuse. Like when he's like, oh, I had dyslexia, it was so hard. And then when he's like, this is what God wanted for me. Like he's really just being like, whatever I want is what God wants. Koresh, when girls reject him. What if that's their problem? Your coworker is gross. My 5th grade students do that. He's technically our customer, so I have to be like, and that's exactly what I do. The maturity level really doesn't rise. Tragic. Literally, why are weird men unavoidable at work? Exactly. Hold men accountable 2023. This is why I can't take religion seriously. Exactly. Like, I would be down with religion. Like, oh, we all get to hang out together. We get to be a little bit delusional together. Like, we get to have fun little songs, outfits. Like, I'm so in. Like, all parts of it, I'm fucking in. But then we have to do this weird abusive shit and this mind control, and it's just fucking unnecessary, in my opinion. My God. So, in 1981, when he was 22, Koresh moved to Waco, Texas, where he joined the branch Davidians. This was fucking news to me on Monday when I Googled this. I always thought that he started the branch Davidians. I didn't realize that, like, they had their whole own shit going on. I'm a dyslexic officer. I thought she said she was 41. My religion is don't be an asshole. I'm really spiritual, and you know it's genuine. In theory, religion is great. It's like, I love written out. I love it. But not written out, I'm not loving it. Y'all, I have undiagnosed ADHD and autism for 22 years, and I never started a cult about it. Crystal history teacher, you've been fire with the chats recently. I think you got chat of the night the other night. That's what I do to my students when my kids make stupid or inappropriate jokes. When men touch things, they ruin it. Well, okay, we're going to talk about how it was founded, and it's always been like a lot. You get what I'm trying to say. So who are the branch Davidians? I needed you all to see this flag. This is quite possibly one of the worst flags I have ever seen. I'm going to be honest. It's like, it's a star, it's a sperm, there's a fish. Like it's one of the worst designs I've seen in a while. Ooh, David. I'm mad at myself for not thinking of that. So, the branch Davidians are an apocalyptic new religious movement founded in 1955 by Benjamin Roden. They regard themselves as a continuation of General Association of Davidian Seventh-day Adventists established by Victor Houteff in 1935. So they have been their whole shit for a while. An apocalyptic new religious movement, that basically just means it's a new religion. Like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, they're old. Religions are supposed to be old. Like, that's the rule, is religions are old. So if it's a new religion, red flag. And then apocalyptic means that, like, part of their religion is, like, the end of the world is going to happen. Like, they think it's ending, and, like, God is going to come to them. So, like, there's a lot of very small religious sects that are very similar. I'm sure in the detail and the nuance they're different, but you get what I'm saying. They're very similar in the fact that they're newer, they're post-apocalyptic. A lot of them are in more isolated rural areas. Seventh-day Adventists are weird anyway, exactly. And a lot of them are like offshoots of each other, or used to be apart and separated, or were separated and then came together. Like, lots of these little small niche kind of culty-esque religions are very intertwined and very similar. Not to take away from their like individual identity, but you know. I heard someone say, if you know someone who was alive when the religion started, it's way too young to be a religion. It's giving FLDS. I used to have the women's wash my car for free when I was in college. At FSU, they'll do that. They have a little Mormon temple, and they do free car washes, and they'll give you snacks, and then they'll be like, you should come back on Sunday. And I'd always be like, for sure, we'll be coming back on Sunday. For sure. And then one time I asked one of them if he wanted to party, and he was like kind of down, and then the other ones like ushered him away, and I was like, let his fucking freak flag fly. Like, he's on his mission, he's in this college town. Like, the lines on the star also kind of giving, it's like the Star of David, but also with the patchwork. It's very interesting. I'm even more convinced we can start our own religion now. All right, so let's look at how this shit fucking started. Houteff, a Bulgarian immigrant and Seventh-day Adventist, wrote a series of tracts titled The Shepherd's Rod, which called for reform of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. After his ideas were rejected, Houteff and his followers formed a group that later became known as the Davidians, and some of them moved onto a tract of land outside of Waco, Texas, United States, where they built a community called the Mount Carmel Center, which served as headquarters for the movement. After Houteff's death in 1955, his wife Florence took control of the Davidian organization. That same year, Roden, a follower of Houtif, proclaimed that he believed to be a new message of God and wrote a series of letters pertaining to the Davidians. He signed these letters the branch, believing that the new name Jesus had taken. He signed these letters the branch, believing that to be the new name Jesus had taken, to reflect a new stage of his work in the heavenly sanctuary. Sorry, I need to put my computer on Do Not Disturb. It scared the shit out of me. Where was I? Those who accepted Roden's teachings became known as the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist. So, basically, just religious shit. I literally have no comment about this. I just felt it was important to include that, this is how it started. So in 1957, Lawrence sold the original Mount Carmel Center and purchased 951 acres near Elk, Texas, 13 miles northeast of Waco, naming the property the new Mount Carmel Center after the failure of Florence's prophecy of apocalyptic events on or near April 22nd, 1959. So this basically means they're like, the apocalypse is coming, the apocalypse is going to happen. And then they're like, it's going to happen on this day. And then it doesn't happen. They have to explain that to their people. It's always a big deal. It usually doesn't end the cult, shockingly. I don't know how. Actually, yes, I do. Brainwash is very powerful. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, where was I? So when she was like, I'm wrong, she dissolved the Davidian Association and sold all but 77 acres of the new Mount Carmel property. And then Roden took possession of the new Mount Carmel in 1962 and began efforts to purchase the remaining acres. In 1973, New Mount Carmel was sold to Benjamin Roden, Lois Roden, and their son George Roden, trustees for the General Association of the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. So from this point forward, the property was known as Mount Carmel, and upon the death of Roden, his wife Lois became the next Davidian prophet at the compound. So this is what happened before David Koresh showed up. So when David Koresh showed up, this lady, Lois Roden, is in charge. So you just kind of saw the story of how that came to be. I'm sure we could go back further, and I'm sure there's a lot more detail, but that's not really what we're here to talk about, so I didn't want to dedicate too much time to it. I mean, QAnon is still going strong with almost no correct predictions, and I don't know how that's happening either. Exactly. My town is called Mount Carmel. That made me feel icky. Different state, though. Sorry I'm late, Mr. Redacted. I'll forgive you this time. Also, I'm sad because my promo videos for this stream flopped so bad. And I was like, this is going to be a fucking good one. These slides are so good. But you know what? It's actually better because I kind of like when it's this amount of people because I can keep up with the chat and it feels more intimate and more like a community and less like I'm just seeing random. Sometimes when I can't keep up with the chat, I do feel left out. I see you guys joking about something and I missed it and I'm like, oh. It makes me feel like the mom at a sleepover. I see everyone having fun and I'm like, I want to have fun. You feel left behind. Exactly. Sorry, I had to search you up, but to find out what stream is about. Exactly. TikTok is in its flop era. I missed the promos, but I never missed a stream. Flat Earth is also going strong. They're wrong as hell, too. Okay, so this is their current spiritual leader. Where was I? So then, that's where we are right now. She took over, and I think it said 1978 is when she took over. So she takes over, it's 1978, and then in 1981, a young man named Vernon Howell, later known as David Koresh, came to Mount Carmel and studied biblical prophecy under Lois Roden. So that's where we are now. So he's already been kicked out of one church, and he goes to this group and decides that he's going to live here and study biblical prophecy with this lady. Buckle the fuck up, because it gets so weird. This is just this stream is going to have the same energy as the Anthrax stream, where we were like, oh, it's that crazy thing. And then we found out even weirder, crazier shit was going on as well. Oh my God, the audio is glitchy and screwing. I have popcorn right now too. Some people are saying some people aren't complaining about it. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. So anyway, Vernon Howell had a sexual relationship with Lois Roden, the widow of your poor Mac. I know, she's struggling. Vernon Howell had a sexual relationship with Lois Roden, the widow of Benjamin Roden and leader of the sect, who was in her late 60s. Obsessed with the idea of Anthrax stream, that phrase out of context is crazy. At church, they blamed audio issues on the devil distracting them. Not bad enough to stop the stream, but it's not great. The audio is glitchy, but I can understand. I'm just going to pretend it's not happening. So anyway, they start having a sexual relationship, and then Koresh eventually began to claim that God had chosen him to father a child by Lois, who would be the chosen one. So he was saying, like, God chose me and you to make the next Jesus. Like, that's what he convinced this woman. Jedi 8, thank you for subscribing. Same with Cluttered Rainbow, thank you for subscribing. Cougar Vernon did not attend health class. He was in his early days, right? Yes, he was 22. The Wild, thank you for subscribing for 4 months. Okay, so where was I? In 1983, Lois allowed Koresh to begin teaching his own message called the Serpent's Root, which caused controversy in the group. And Lois's son, George Roden, who felt like he should be the next group leader, considered Koresh an interloper. So very messy from day one, extremely messy. And yes, she is fully in her 60s. He is 22. I don't really know why she thought this would work. If you can form your own cult, if you can't form your own cult, store-bought is fine. Yes, he's 22, literally worked under her. Like, he was like, all right, how can I man boss my way to the top? And he was like, maybe if I dickmatize this lady, that'll just be like an effective method for me gaining control of this cult. I think that was essentially his plan. So David used her desire to get pregnant with the next chosen one to manipulate her into letting him speak at the congregation, because originally she was very hesitant. She was like, I don't know. I don't think people will be fucking into that. Like, I think people want you to speak. So he would say things like, God is punishing her by not conceiving the baby because her faith isn't strong enough. He would be like, if you really believed what I'm telling you and you believed God, you let me preach. The reason you haven't gotten pregnant is because you haven't done that. So I am deeply concerned. Just jumping off, like, this is so fucked up and so weird. And I need to know how he manipulated her so much. Because again, as someone said, she is 60 years old. Because Jesus and miracles, exactly. Punishing her, that's so cruel. Exactly. I mean, like she was kind of a cult leader too. So, let me talk. He was like, I was not silent, I was silenced. That's what David Koresh said. It's worth noting that many former members of the Branch Davidian have disputed the idea that Koresh had an affair with Lois Roden and suggested that the rumors were spread by Koresh himself as a part of his efforts to legitimize his leadership claim to the group. They argue that Koresh was a charismatic but manipulative figure who used religion to exert control over his followers, and that his alleged affair with Lois Roden was just one of many ways he sought to gain power and influence within the group. So that's one trend that you will notice coming up many times on the stream, is that they're very mixed accounts of what happened. Lots of things were fucked up, but lots of people had different experiences, and as you can imagine, they are not exactly the best record keepers because, you know, he's dyslexic. I know Lois was letting him hit stop. We're all going to hell. Or she didn't get pregnant because she's in her 60s. Babe, you're 60, follow your dreams, but I don't think it's going to happen for you. Yeah, I don't think it's the time for her. I really don't. And then in 1984, Koresh announced that God had instructed him to marry 14-year-old Branch Davidian named Rachel Jones, whom he would end up having 2 children with. So he is kind of like the it boy here. Like, apparently when he came, he was just like washing dishes and like kind of their little errand boy, but he was like very charismatic, I guess, and so he kind of became like one of the main guys there. God instructed me to tell Joe Biden to cancel student debt. Yes, love the Arrested Development meme. So the reason you might be, how did he not go to jail? This was the 80s. Fun fact, it's still legal because her parents gave consent, because he's a manipulator and a narcissist, and he said that God was working through him. So her parents were like, yeah, where do I sign? You can definitely take her. Go for it. A lot of these people also really think God is a pedo. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So here's a picture of him and his wife. There's not a ton of pictures. We'll talk about later. They were living like in very bad conditions without electricity, so it makes sense why they don't have that many photos and things of that nature. Another 14-year-old pulled into this, leave them alone. Exactly. Like, it's just wife, child bride. Literally child bride. That's what we use in the game. Me trying to figure out why every time God speaks through a man, he tells him to marry a teenage girl. Like, that's just, I've noticed this trend repeat many times historically, and I'm finding it a little bit strange personally. He's reminding me of that other cult leader who's currently serving time. The baby's face is like, what is going on? Keith Raniere? Sus. Very much sus. The one from NXIVM. Okay, so then he enters like backpacker era. So a period of calm ensued at Mount Carmel after he had married Rachel Jones, but it was very temporary. A fire destroyed a $500,000 administrative building and press. Roden said that Koresh started the fire, but Koresh said that no man set that fire and that it was a judgment of God. Roden, claiming to have the support of the majority of the group, forced Koresh and his group off the property at gunpoint. So there was this kind of split of like Koresh had his followers, Roden has his followers, and they forced Koresh to get off of their land, basically. Ryan started the fire. Who's Ryan? I bet it was something nasty to do with purity culture and Mary being only 13 when she had Jesus. Ugh. It's reminding me of the Sister Wives guy. He does have Cody Brown energy. I hate to say it, but he does. So Koresh and around 25 followers set up camp in Palestine, Texas, which is about 90 miles from Waco. They lived in very, very not okay conditions. They were living in buses and tents. They had no running water or electricity. And the part that I think is really interesting is that he used the terrible conditions he put people through as a defense for like why they needed to be loyal to him. So he would say things to them. He'd be like, this is to turn your focus to God. If you're loyal to God, you won't care about these things. And he said that God was speaking through him. So it's basically just like him implanting these ideas of like loyalty. And then plus when people don't have their physical needs met, it's a lot easier to manipulate them and to like get them to do things. So who started a fire? We are not sure. We're not sure how that fire started. That's the thing. That's what I was mentioning. A lot of these things have very mixed accounts. Like David Koresh said he wasn't doing it. Other people said he was. We don't know. God wants me to have running water and electricity. David for sure. So, I forgot about. So, what I find interesting is during this time that they are literally homeless. They're living in buses and tents, and these are small children as well. They have small children out here with them that they are homeschooling. And during this time, despite that they're living in extreme poverty, he went all over the fucking world to recruit people. He went to California, the United Kingdom, Israel, Australia, and then the same year that he traveled to Israel, he claimed that he had a vision that he was the modern day Cyrus. So he said, like, God spoke to me in Israel and said that he's speaking through me and whatever, and that he was the prophet, basically. You'll be the match, I'll be the fuse, boo. Literally, fuck the police. Everything is fucked up in that situation. I believe it was a cult member, 100%. It was wild how the parent jeopardized their kids. Yes, it is very, very sad how the parents jeopardized their kids. So Branch Davidian leader David Koresh and Clive Doyle during a 1986 visit to Australia to recruit followers. Who's going with them? Like, that's what I'm not understanding. Like how they're winning people over. I'm not, like, I don't know. I get the people that are born into it, got money to go to Australia. That's what I'm saying. No man sent that fire. I sent my teenage girl to do it, literally. Napoleon Dynamite looking dude. Like, that's why I'm wondering, like, you all have no money, but you're in Australia, and it's really expensive to fly to Australia, especially in the 1980s. How the fuck did you even get there? We've got Australia. I mean, they recruited a fair number of Australians, so you're not wrong. So then he decided that he's not Minister International. Where was I? Okay, so the founder of the Davidian movement, Victor Houtif, who wanted to be God's implement and establish the Davidian kingdom in Palestine. Koresh also wanted to be God's tool and set up a Davidian kingdom in Jerusalem. At least until 1990, he believed that the place of his martyrdom might be in Israel. And so then he ended up changing his mind. So he was kind of on this Mr. International, like, I'm going to be the martyr. I need to go to Israel and be closer to God. And then by 1991, he was like, no, I belong in the United States. The people of America need to have me. And he said that the prophecy of Daniel would be fulfilled in Waco, and that the Mount Carmel Center was the Davidic kingdom. So this is how he was like at Mount Carmel, got kicked out, is going all over the world, says he's going to go to Israel. He probably realized that's really unrealistic and expensive as shit. And then he was like, actually, we need to just take over Mount Carmel. So now he's returning. This stream is kind of yawn. Well, I think you're kind of yawn, and it's a first-time chat. So maybe you should have tried to engage earlier, because we all create this community together. Thanks. Unless you were joking, then I love you. Mr. Worldwide, no more. As a North Texan, it's funny that he changed his name and said, no, Waco is the place to be. I want to know what percent of lead was in Waco's drinking water. I'm loving this stream. Good. Me the fuck too, bitches. Me the fuck too. Okay. Oh, you thought the weird shit was over? Nope. Just beginning. So, aside from his little international thing, during these years that he would have been kicked out, after being exiled to the Palestinian camp, they eked out a primitive existence. And when Lois died in 1986, the exiled branch Davidians wondered if they would ever be able to return to Mount Carmel. But despite the displacement, Koresh now enjoyed the loyalty of the majority of the Branch Davidian community. And then, in 1987, Roden, the son of the lady that Koresh was fucking, exhumed at least one body from the community cemetery. He digged up a body. Roden said that he was just moving the cemetery, but Koresh said that Roden had issued a challenge to resurrect the body, and that whoever resurrected the body would be the new leader. So Roden is saying, like, no, I was just rearranging our land, and Koresh said that he called him and said, like, let's have a fuck bring back the dead dance battle, and whoever wins gets to be the leader. Edward Cullen also dug up a body, so, oh my god. Necromancy. I don't know what that means. The lag is so bad, it just keeps skipping. Pissing me off so bad, and I wish there was something I could do about it. I'm ordering a fucking Ethernet cable right now. Actually like research that and figure out the ports. Sleeping with the dead. Horrifying. So, Koresh went to the authorities to file charges against Roden for illegally exhuming a corpse, but was told that he would have to show proof such as a photograph of the corpse. So Koresh goes to the police and is like, they're digging up dead bodies, and the police were like, well, how do you know that? Because we can't just go there and like assume that, you know? In their grave robbing era, absolutely. So Koresh seized this opportunity to seek criminal persecution of Roden by returning to Mount Carmel with 7 armed followers, allegedly attempting to get photographic proof of the exhumation. Koresh's group was discovered by Roden, and a gunfight broke out. When the sheriff arrived, Roden had already suffered a minor gunshot wound and was pinned down behind a tree. As a result of the incident, Koresh and his followers were charged with attempted murder. At the trial, Koresh explained that he went to Mount Carmel to uncover evidence of a criminal disturbance by a corpse by Roden, and Koresh's followers were acquitted, and in Koresh's case, a mistrial was declared. So, where was I? I want to put this in here or not, or if I should just tell you. I might come up later, but I will tell you that basically the lawyers really didn't want to put Roden on the stand because he was crazy. Like, Roden was also crazy, so they didn't want to put him on the stand, but he was their only witness. So they did put him on the stand. Sorry. And then when they did, they were like, did you dig up a dead body? And he was like, yeah, I did. So that's why the jury was like, okay, fuck this. This is a mistrial. He made a Ronin pre-corpse NBD. Oh, right. Let me just take my old school Polaroid because that's total success. So, Branch Davidians ex-brigade. So in 1989, Roden murdered Wayman Dale Adar with an axe blow to the skull after Adar stated his belief that he himself was the true Messiah. So Roden, like I said, is also fucking crazy. So that's when, like, yeah, David Koresh didn't start the cult, but it's not like he took a perfectly innocent, amazing group of people and made them evil. How could someone say, yeah, I'm sorry, they're digging up corpses? I can't believe the guy digging up graves wasn't considered a reliable witness. My God. They're wild. They're wild out here. So he killed this guy because the guy said he was the presidential alert the girls are fighting, grave digging to murder pipeline. Why would he just admit it like that? He had to probably put his hand on the Bible. He was just being honest. What is it with white men and wanting to be the Messiah? Like, the world was already built for you. Let someone else have the luxury. And, like, there's other jobs. Like, you don't want to be a doctor. There are holes in the grave story. Exactly. So, Roden claimed that this man was sent by Koresh to kill him. So, like, they're beefing hard as fuck, basically. So, he was judged insane and then confined to a psychiatric hospital in Big Spring, Texas. Since Roden owed thousands of dollars of unpaid taxes on the Mount Carmel Center, Koresh and his followers were able to raise money and reclaim the property. Roden continued to harass the Koresh faction by filing legal papers while imprisoned. When Koresh and his followers reclaimed the Mount Carmel Center, they discovered that tenants who had rented from Roden had left behind a meth lab, which Koresh reported to the local police department and asked to have it removed. And basically what Koresh says, he was like, I want to show that I'm the right side of the law. Like, we were just found innocent in this case. We have this now. We need to do the right thing. Let's just report it. Like, apparently that is what his followers said he was saying. I personally believe it's because I want to sleep with children, being the Messiah gives them permission. Yeah, I think so too. Can you imagine Wendy being a cult member? Oh my God. I wouldn't want the responsibility of being the Messiah. I can barely keep myself fed and healthy. Well, as you can see, he did not keep other people fed or healthy. This club has everything. Grave digging, murder, meth. I told you all, this is crazy. ACAB until you need me to get your enemy. Oh my God, there's a meth lab too. This story is so insane. I'm going to fail the hell out of this quiz. I had to make it really quickly, so it's kind of easy. It's the Holy Trinity. Exactly. It's exactly what we need. So this is around the time he changes his name in 1990. So Vernon Howell filed a petition in California State Superior Court, Pomona in 1990 to legally change his name for publicity and business purposes, David Koresh, and then they granted this petition. His first name, David, symbolized lineage directly to the biblical King David, from whom the new Messiah would descend, and then Koresh is the biblical name of Cyrus the Great, a Persian king who was named Messiah for freeing the Jews during Babylonian captivity. By taking the name of David Koresh, he was professing himself to be the spiritual leader, the spiritual descendant of King David, and the Masonic figure carrying out a divinely commissioned errand. So yes, he said rebrand. He hit them with the rebrand. Absolutely, David hit them with the rebrand. So, trigger warning. Now we're going to kind of talk about, so let me just kind of pause to where we are to cover where we've been for anyone that joined late. He had a fucked up childhood, didn't everyone. Then he joins this cult. They kick him out. He comes back and takes over. And then now he's leading this cult. So now we're going to talk about what life was like inside of this cult. This is a lot to fit on one business card. I did think it was weird that his name was David. He was in the branch Davidians. I think that's why a lot of people think that he started it, because they just assume that it was him that started it when it wasn't. But it's all from the Bible. Why did he even need his own religion? Not the trigger warning being smart. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to use. So now we're going to talk about some of the allegations that I think are 100% true. So to me, they're facts. Of sexual assault and child abuse. We are not going to do anything super graphic. I do not feel like it is educational or beneficial to be recounting extremely graphic, detailed instances. So we'll be talking about, his birth name was Vernon Howell. So we will be talking about what happened, but I'm not going to make it overly graphic, just to give you context. So Koresh was alleged to have been involved with multiple incidences of physical and sexual abuse of children. His doctrine of the House of David did lead to marriages with both married and single women in the branch Davidians. This doctrine was based on the purported revelation that involved the production of 24 children by chosen women of the community. So basically, this is his interpretation of the Bible, I guess. These 24 children were to serve as the 24 ruling elders over the millennium after the return of Christ. So he was like, I need to make my little army to take care of the world once Christ returns. These women purportedly chosen through this doctrine included at least one underage girl, Michelle Jones, who was the younger sister of Koresh's legal wife, Rachel, and daughter of long life branch Davidians, Perry and Mary Bell Jones. This says at least one underage girl. Like Rachel isn't also an underage girl. So was he investigated for any of like the sexual abuse and the child marriages? A 6-month investigation of sexual abuse allegations by the Texas Child Protective Services failed to turn up any evidence, possibly because the Branch Davidians concealed the marriage of Koresh to Michelle by assigning her a surrogate husband for the sake of appearances. So what they would do is that like all the wives were married to David Koresh, which we'll talk about in a second. I actually should have put this in a different order, but you know whatever. All the wives are married to David Koresh, but they have like a fake husband for governmental purposes that they write down on paper. So even though the sister of the girl he married at 14, yes. So even though he was like, she's going to get pregnant with my kids, David Thibodeau, you're going to be her husband on paper. So that's, and I think David was younger too. Like they had all these fake, if all the wives' names maybe rhyme, maybe he can't forget them. So they had all these like fake paperworks, which is why this is also a difficult story to track down. So regardless of the allegations of physical abuse, the evidence is less certain. In one widely reported incident, ex-members claimed that Koresh became irritated with the cries of his son Cyrus and spanked the child severely for several minutes on 3 consecutive visits to the child's bedroom. On a second report, a man involved in a custody battle visited Mount Carmel and claimed to have seen the beating of a young boy with a stick. There's also a couple that was Branch Davidians, and the wife was Australian and the husband was American, and then they ended up leaving and going to Australia and escaping, and they were repetitively like calling the government, being like, you need to go do something, these people are crazy, and no one ever fucking took them seriously, and it pisses me off. But anyway, moving on. So this is what I was talking about. Let me like do my snot. Hold on, I'm taking the microphone away. I needed to just like, suck the snot out my nose. Straight to the bottom of the ocean with an anchor attached to his ankle. Absolutely. If the OG wife was legally married as a minor, the parents probably signed off on it, so she wouldn't be considered child abuse. Yes, exactly. The parents signed off on her being married to David Thibodeau, even though she was actually polygamous married to David Koresh. If you watch the Netflix doc, it talks about this, and you can tell she still believes in the cult 100%. Yes, it's disgusting listening to her excuse pedophilia. I watched that and I completely agree with you. She is 100% still in this cult. Like, even though it doesn't exist anymore, her mind is still trapped. Absolutely. So curious how morals work, because how can beating a child get you into heaven? Yes, I believe in documentary. This is what someone was saying, this Kathy woman that was in the cult. Ex-cult member stated in their society, girls are considered women at 12 because that's when they start their cycle. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police. Exactly. So, according to Carrie Jewell, whose mother Sherry was one of Koresh's wives before she herself became a bride at just 10 years old, Koresh had as many as 20 wives by the time he died in 1993. Spoiler alert, he dies. But he was only legally married to one woman, Rachel Jones. So former Davidian David Bunce recalled to ABC News in the same article that Koresh dissolved any marriages within the group, and all women would be his wives if he wanted them. Koresh was legally married to Rachel Jones, who also died in 1993. Koresh's justification for taking all the women for himself was theological. He's the only one power, and he's the only one that had the authority to give the seed. But Bunce said, adding that if he had sex with a woman, Koresh would say she was in the house of David. So yeah, being a member of the house of David was a privilege. Basically, David would be having children with some of the wives, added former follower David Thibodeau. So really weird shit going on. Like, men and women are required to sleep separately. Like, wives and husbands are not allowed to have sex with each other. The only person that can have sex with anyone is David Koresh. If you're having sex, it's with David Koresh, or you are David Koresh. He is very much the worst. Very much the worst. So followers said that women had to wear long blouses, no makeup or jewelry could be worn. They said that Koresh would tell them where to sleep, what food they could eat, and that sugar, processed flour, and dairy products were all forbidden. He taught us that we should not eat any dairy products. His reasoning was, well, dairy products are made from milk, which is baby food. Milk is what you drink when you're a baby, and we're adults now. Imagine giving your whole life to this man. This is the logic of a 12-year-old. I am disappointed but not surprised. Sheila Martin moved to the compound with her husband and their 5 children in 1988, said, "It was fun as long as we were being obedient." What is wrong with these parents? He has some points about if we weren't being obedient in the sense of like, I went to the store and bought something, it was being selfish. He would always let us know it wasn't right and we should have done differently, and many times in front of everyone. He wasn't wrong. I'm not giving up cheese for God. Exactly. Oh, wait, where'd my meme about it go? Me as soon as I saw no dairy. Immediately goodbye. Immediately goodbye. Fun, ma'am? Exactly. Exactly. I would have been out with the no dairy. Eat cheese and worship Satan. Maybe that'll be chat tonight, Panda Girl 718. Not good, the cows. Y'all are funny. There we go. That quote is triggering. Which one? Okay, so men deserve nothing. Defector Janine Buns testified to ATF Special Agent Aguilera at the time that Howell had fathered at least 15 children of various women and young girls at the compound. Some of the girls who had babies fathered by Howell were as young as 12, per the Department of Justice. She had personally delivered 7 of these children. According to Buns, Howell annuls all marriages of couples who join his cult. He then has exclusive sexual access to the women. He also, according to Mr. Buns, has regular sexual relations with young girls there, girls ages far from 11 to adulthood. So I think what Kathy said is correct, that in their cult, like, that's a woman once you get your period. So that's like, I'm not saying it's right, obviously, but I'm saying the ages line up with that being like their view. This is very, very fucked up. I don't think they were doing meth. It's said that the people doing meth were tenants. Like the guy before was renting out space because like they didn't have that many people. And the tenants were doing the meth lab stuff. So ex-followers describe life inside of the cult. Former followers said that the compound had no running water, heat, or electricity, and there was Bible study 3 times a day. Branch Davidian Clive Doyle said that Koresh had been interested in music, and Lois Roden encouraged him to sing and play guitar, which became a part of the daily Bible study sessions. So music was also a really big part of it. He believed he was King David. He was using music to reach a lot of people. We were thinking it's a stage name, but it's more than that. So this does sound like hell. ZK Butterworth, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Subscribe for 6 months. Love to hear it. Love to see it. Love that for us. 3 times a day. How much can they study? So the part that surprises me is that it is shockingly diverse. I feel like a lot of times these are really just white people, especially in the United States. Most of these also are like racist white supremacist organizations. I feel like a lot of times those go hand in hand. But this had a shocking number of immigrants and people of color. So it was a very diverse group of more than 100 people. The majority were white people in their 30s and 40s from Texas, which makes sense because that's where they were. But many of his followers were Black, including a contingent of Afro-Brits, meaning like people that descend from Africa that live in England, like African American British, basically is what that means, who had picked up stakes in England and then moved to Waco. Imagine like being in England and then being like, yeah, I'll move to Waco, Texas for this fucking guy. There were also Australians, Caribbean Islanders, several Hawaiians, and others of Asian, Mexican, and Native American descent, plus Pablo Cohen, an Argentinian-born Israeli that the others called their taco Jew. I had to read this 5 times. I have no idea. No clue. And apparently Koresh said, don't be flaunting yourself or what country you're from. Don't be flaunting your education or the color of your skin. God's not into that, and we won't tolerate it here. So he basically was like, we are all from God. I don't give a fuck like what you look like or where you're from, and don't talk about what you look like or where you're from. And part of that is like stripping people of their identity as well. Sounds like a fusion food. Excuse me. That's a hate crime right there. David said, we will be pedo, but we will not be racist. He's like, even I have a line, you guys. I do not stand for racism. Such a control freak. Like, damn. I personally think his lack of racism does not come from like a desire for justice. I think it comes from like narcissism and recruitment, that he's like, I don't give a fuck what you look like. If you're going to worship me, you can come. So by 1990, like we said, he had changed his name to David Koresh, and then he had taken over the group, encouraging the use of guns and preaching an ever-increasing brand of apocalyptic prophecy. So once he became David Koresh and was completely in charge, that's when shit started to get a lot more violent. He believed that the group would someday be under attack by the U.S. government and begin stockpiling guns and ammunition. So this makes so much sense to me because I think so many people look at the situation of Waco and they say, the federal government's there. Why didn't these people leave? Like, why didn't they just kill David Koresh and leave with these guns pointed at them? And what you have to think about is that for years and years and years and years and years, he has been telling them the federal government's going to come. They're going to try and separate us. They're going to try and say that our God doesn't exist and they're going to attack us. And he would say things like, you have to be ready to run through a hail of bullets for our God. So when that shit happened, everyone was like, holy shit, you were right. And then they believed him even more. Does that make sense? He had that ESPN. My God. He was probably like, oh, you're systematically oppressed and want to belong somewhere? Come here and I'll oppress you directly. Take out the middleman. Big red flag. He was brainwashing them. Exactly. So former followers said that Koresh truly believed he was on a mission from God and he was the only one who could interpret the Bible and true meaning for the masses. His message changed a bit over the years because he was always looking for the next big thing to teach that would shock people into listening to him. It's important to David Koresh to isolate the group from the world because the world is an influence that is constantly pulling and distracting you from the message. Also, I want to note, do you see these fucking slides end up in the wrong spots? And then the meme is there. Whatever, that already happened. Some of these like got out of order. Whatever. We continue. So that's kind of his vibe where he is at now. We already talked about Sheila a little bit. She already talked about this. This is more about discipline that was supposed to be earlier. So former followers said discipline was constantly administered. Joan Vega, who was 6-year-old when she left the compound, said she remembers being hit regularly as a kid. Being disciplined was like a 24/7 thing. There's nothing you could do right. It's how I felt as a kid, that fear. Nothing you can do is going to be good enough. You're just raised with fear. Everywhere is fear. Vega said Koresh constantly told them the end of the world was coming and that they were the chosen people to survive because David was the son of God and that they were taught to prepare for war and end times as predicted in the book of Revelation. So he reminds me of what Trump says at rallies. Yeah, I do kind of get that vibe from him. I do get that energy. I feel like they kind of have the same vibe. Do you guys get what I mean? Like, obviously I don't mean literally, but I just felt like, yeah, like in essence, they have the same vibe. Like, nothing you can do will be good enough. Like, always. Does that make sense? A Walmart cart corral. Trump would be in cahoots. Absolutely. Trump would be like, I think it's terrible what they're doing to David Koresh down in Waco, Texas. I called ATF myself and told them to cut it out. I think it's just awful what they're doing to David and his followers. They're very loyal followers, almost as loyal as my followers. I'm pretty good at the Trump impression. They both be traumatizing children. Barbara's narcissism. Not Abby Lee. Imagine David Koresh having a pyramid to rank members. This week at the top of the pyramid is Rachel Jones because she let me marry her underage and also let me marry her underage sister. That would be David Koresh's pyramid. Trump would have made Koresh's V. Please, he'd rank the wives. If only he could scoot himself backwards on a motorized wheelchair. Joe Jussie was typing. That impression was scary good. Thank you. That's Abby. I'm sitting there trying to figure out who it is. I don't know. I just felt like they had the same vibe. So, Koresh had many of his own children. We already mentioned that he was accused of abusing his own children. Dana Okimoto gave birth to his son Scott Okimoto, and in 2003, she said that children were kept in line by a wooden paddle and faced several beatings for minor infractions, spilling a glass of milk. Because remember, kids can have milk. The adults can't have milk, but kids can. She said she remembered being so under Koresh's control that she beat Sky until he bled. If there's one thing I could take back, it would be the spankings. Dana Okimoto said at the time, I feel like the most evil person in the world to be beating my baby this way, but this is what God wanted and needed from me. Former followers said that Koresh would separate families from each other, and Bruce Perry told NBC that if Koresh thought a mother and child had a tighter bond than between him and the child, Koresh would tell the parent, you haven't been disciplining them adequately, so I'm going to have this mother raise your kids. So again, very much on the aspect of control, and like these people have to be loyal to him and he is completely in charge. Abby could lead a cult, but David could never win nationals. Very true. Two narcissists in one room, ew. He could not make the thought of milk. So everyone in the community was taking care of the kids. It wasn't your parent, it was your parent. Everyone was supposed to be a parent. Anyone could spank anyone because everyone was the parent. Doyle said Koresh asked his followers, including married couples, to embrace celibacy. Then Bunn said Koresh claimed all marriages were dissolved and that all women would be his wives if he wanted them to, even though he was, like we said, married to Rachel Jones. And like we already said this, these slides got so fucked up. Nearpod's been doing this a lot to me. So we already talked about the whole sex thing and marriage thing. So moving on. So, okay, so it's sick and perverted. Yeah, it's one of the things about David Koresh that bothers me the most, Bunn said. It's my position now that David Koresh is a pedophile, and I wish I would have done something. I don't know what I would have done, but I wish I would have done something. Looking back on his time inside Koresh's sect was emotional for Bunn, who said it was a difficult time to fully understand what was going on around them. I'll call it a cult. That's what it was. It was people doing things they wouldn't normally do, like giving up their wives, letting their children have sex with adults, which is crazy, but that's what you do when you're in a cult, he said. Someone says they have authority and then impose your rules and restrictions and expectations. It gets down in your soul and it really screws you. Jim Jones did the celibacy thing too. To me, required celibacy is one of the biggest red flags about an organization. Like anytime your physical and natural urges are being restricted, whether that's your urge to sleep, whether that's your urge to eat, your urge to have sex, whatever, any of your natural urges are being restricted, to me that's a red flag that people are trying to control you. In my humble opinion, we need to stream Jim Jones, maybe. So he started heavily arming himself, like we mentioned, because my slides got super fucked up. I guess God's not on my side today, but it's fine. He claimed that he cracked the code 7 seals of the book of Revelation and was able to predict the events leading to the apocalypse. He told his followers that the Lord willed the Davidians to build an army of God, and as a result, they started stockpiling weapons. Other branch Davidians claimed that the weapons were not meant for defense, but rather sold at gun shows to generate revenue for the sect. So, again, mixed reviews, because I think a lot of people are still very much like in this cult. Like their brain is still a part of the cult. Their brain, their mind, their body, their spirit is still a part of the cult. And the weapons thing, part of what he said is that they bought all of these weapons. I don't know anything about guns, but they were like, oh, we think that Bill Clinton's going to make them illegal, so then we'll be able to sell them at gun shows. This was like a financial investment. We weren't trying to arm ourselves. I think they were fucking trying to arm themselves, because why would you be talking about guns so much, and why would you be saying shit like you need to be prepared to run through a rain of bullets and all of that? The people on the Netflix doc definitely still seemed in it. Yes, I watched that a couple weekends ago. So, it was really hard to find accurate pictures of their guns, because some of them were like in articles, but it didn't have a source for the photo. So these are the ones that I think were taken, like these are their shits, but I'm not 100% sure. You can see that these little evidence tags on them. But regardless, they have a fuck ton of guns. Like they had a lot of guns. So basically what happens is the UPS peeps that they have these guns. Now we're going to kind of start getting into a little bit of the investigation. So in May 1992, Chief Deputy Daniel Weinberg of the McLennan County Sheriff's Department called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, to notify them that his office had been contacted by a local UPS driver or local UPS representative concerned about a report from a local driver. So the UPS driver said a package had broken open on the delivery to the Branch Davidian residence, and he was already sus of this because they had armed guards and they'd have to like let him in to deliver shit to them. So he already knew that like these people are a little weird. They have a lot of guns. Like the energy is off. No one ever leaves. No one comes in and out. So he already knew shit was weird. And then one day this box breaks open and reveals at least half a dozen grenades. So he realizes like, oh, they're ordering a shit ton of weapons is what's happening here. And he also noted that the compound had been receiving packages from arms dealers for months. I don't understand people's obsession with guns. Little children are dying. We need gun laws so bad. Yes, we do. I always feel bad. Someone asked me the other day, like, why haven't you talked about the most recent school shooting? And I never really ever talk about like current events or news. I like talking about like more in-depth older stuff. But I just really like the reason I haven't talked about it is because I truly don't feel like I have anything of value to say. Like, it's super fucked up. I don't know what to do. Because people are like, oh, bring awareness. Like, I think we're past that, personally. And also, like, I've seen, no matter what you say, people just rip you apart, and it ends up, like, your message just gets muddied in it. So I just, like, it's a really difficult subject to approach, but I feel bad that I don't do more. So, like, what else is there to do or say? That's exactly how I feel. In college, I was extremely politically active. Quarter Life Crisis knows. I would go to protest. I was on every Democratic list. I drove people to vote. I did voting rallies. I registered people to vote. I signed petitions. I did all these things, and I just feel like I'm just very burned out of it. We're aware that the people can do more that won't. Literally everyone is aware. That's why I'm like, me talking about how I'm aware and I'm upset, I just don't feel like is adding value, and I only like to speak on stuff publicly if I feel like I have something of value to add, and I literally just don't. People just like their pew-pews more than children being alive. You shouldn't feel bad or feel like you have to take on that burden. Thank you. That's what I mean. It's like, because that's what I mean. Like, what I just don't have anything of value I'm adding. So I just feel like it's just giving more fuel for people to fight and say fucked up shit. But anyway, back on topic. Where was I? The UPS driver, like we said, they have grenades. They've been receiving packages from arms dealers for months and months and months. So who is the ATF? Because a lot of people think it's weird that the ATF was the one investigating them. The ATF is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and it is a domestic law enforcement agency within the United States Department of Justice. So they regulate alcohol, tobacco, and firearms is their job. So that's why they're investigating, is because of guns. So on June 9th, the ATF opened a formal investigation and a week later classified it as sensitive, thereby calling for a high degree of oversight from both Houston and headquarters. The documentary Inside Waco claims that the investigation started in 1992 when the ATF became concerned over reports of automatic gunfire coming from the Caramel compound. That's the other thing. Very mixed reviews on when this investigation started. Could not nail down a day for you. I'm very sorry. Because the ATF is like, yeah, we knew for a long time, but then other people are like, no, the fuck you didn't. And then it's very confusing. Even like one government website would have a different date than another government website. I'm not saying like people on the blogs disagree. I'm saying like on like historical government websites of Texas, it would have one date. And then on the ATF website, it would have another. And then like Wikipedia, it'd have another that was like cited to a historic journal. Like, I could not figure out when the fuck they started this investigation. Where was I? So they opened an investigation, fucking at some point. On July 30th, ATF agents David Aguilera and Skinner visited the Branch Davidians gun dealer Henry McMahon, who tried to get them to talk with Koresh on the phone. And David Koresh said to the ATF, please come inspect our weapons and paperwork, and asked to speak with Aguilera directly. So David is still on his stance that like, we're doing nothing wrong. We need to be open with the government. Like the same thing with his meth lab that they found from the tenant. He was like, let's just call them right now. And they said that they were like, we can't go there because he could ambush us. Like, it's so apparent that the ATF was not the people that needed to be investigating this, because they are like so tunnel vision of like weapons. Like, they're not keeping in mind any other of the emotional dynamics, of the social dynamic there, the religious aspect of it. Like, they're just not equipped to handle this from like the culture of the organization, I feel. Where was I? Wait, I lost my place. Okay, sorry. Moving on. So, Sheriff Harwell told reporters regarding to law enforcement talking with Koresh, just go out and talk to them. What's wrong with notifying them? I agree. I feel like a lot could have been done from having the conversation The ATF did not do that, though. They began surveillance from a house across the road from the compound several months before the siege, and their cover was pretty bad. They did not really have like a good cover story. They said that they were college students, but they were all in their 30s and they had new cars and were not registered at any of the local schools, and they did not keep a schedule that would make sense. Like they were like in the house all the time. And also all of their car license plate were registered to the same business that was like miles and miles and miles away, like in a completely other city. So David Koresh kind of figured out who he was. But I digress. The investigation included sending in an undercover agent, Robert Rodriguez. Koresh said that he knew who he was, but chose to not reveal that he knew he was an undercover agent until the day of the raid. So basically, this guy was like going to Bible study some, and he's saying like, oh, I'm a college student, I live nearby, but you know, the branch of a government that handles stuff could be any government agency, to be honest. He was like basically saying, oh, I do your little Bible study, I live nearby. He was like kind of in the community, but not really in the community. But apparently David Koresh knew who he was and what the fuck was going on. So throughout this investigation, ATF showed that the group had 136 firearms, including assault rifles and handguns. And the big thing they were upset with is that they were illegally modifying semi-automatic weapons into automatic weapons, which is illegal, because to have an automatic weapon, I think you need to have like higher credentials and it has to be registered, but not for semi-automatic weapons. So that's why the ATF is investigating this. And that's what I mean when I say like they're just not equipped to handle this, and it's like not their lane, because they're so focused on like, well, do they have semi-automatic weapons or automatic weapons? And they're not thinking about like, this is a cult, these people think that this is God, very heavily armed. Like they're not looking at it as holistic when they need to. Like we'll talk about next week, like actual raid and the standoff and all of that, because they didn't have like a single social worker there or like anything like that, a single cult expert there. It was just like the FBI and the ATF. How large is the group at this point? It's a little over 100 people. Most of them are adults, but a lot of them do have children. So they had 136 firearms. So that is more than one gun for every adult there. 700 magazines, 200,000 rounds of ammunition, 110 upper and lower receivers for AR-15 and M16 rifles, grenade launcher attachments for said rifles, 400 plus empty M31 rifle grenades, along with black powder and other explosive chemicals. Slim to none critical thinking. I didn't know that guns could have a grenade launcher. Me either. I don't know anything about guns. Very much uneducated when it comes to guns. So, ATF, I got very mixed reviews on this too. ATF said that they wanted to arrest Koresh outside of Mount Carmel. But then other groups said that, so ATF said they wanted to arrest him outside of Mount Carmel, saying, oh, he rarely leaves. But then other groups said he leaves all the time, and ATF said they didn't want to arrest him outside of Mount Carmel because they wouldn't be able to control the situation and they wouldn't know like the layout of the land. That's what I mean. Like the ATF is not an expert in how to arrest a cult leader. They need to get someone who is. So the Branch Davidian members were very well known locally and had cordial relationships with other locals, and they partially supported themselves, like we said, by trading at gun shows, and took care to have the relevant paperwork to ensure their transactions were legal. And then Branch Davidian Paul Fata was a federal firearms license dealer, and when the group operated a retail gun business called Magbag, when shipments Magbag arrived, they were signed by Fata, Steve Schneider, or Koresh. So lots of guns are in here still. The morning of the raid, Paul Fata and his son Kalani were apparently on the way to an Austin gun show to conduct business. So, using the affidavit filed by Aguilera that alleged that the Davidians had violated federal law, the ATF obtained search and arrest warrants for Koresh and specific followers on weapons charges, citing the many firearms they had accumulated. So like I said, they're in trouble not because of the cult shit, not because of the child abuse shit, not because of the sexual abuse shit. They're in trouble for turning semi-automatic weapons into automatic weapons. I'm a social worker and I can't imagine the PTSD those kids have. Yeah, for real. Do you think the leaders of cults actually believe they're nonsense? I think some do, and I think he is one that did. I think not all of them do, though. So the search warrant commanded a search on or before February 28th, 1993, between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. The ATF made the claim that Koresh was possibly operating a methamphetamine lab to establish a drug nexus and obtain military assets under the war on drugs. So to me, this is also the ATF, like, they get to put on a show. The police are a gang, and they want to show that they're powerful, and they want to show that they have all these cool toys. And I think that the ATF probably is normally not that exciting. You know, tobacco and alcohol, it's lots of paperwork is what they do around like licenses and registration. So I think the fact that they were like, we get to have a raid, they were just like had a huge hard on for that, in my opinion. So although ATF's investigation focused on firearm violations, not illegal drugs, the ATF requested assistance from the DEA, that's the Drug Enforcement Agency, and the DOD, the Department of Defense, citing a drug connection based on recent delivery of recent delivery of the compound of chemicals, instruments, glassware, a written testimony from former compound resident alleging that Howell had told him that drug trafficking was a desirable way to raise money. You can say that without doing it. And then several current residents who had prior drug involvement. There were a fair number of residents who said that like they had prior drug issues, which that to me doesn't mean that they're doing drugs here. It's very common for people to fall into another toxic environment after leaving addiction. So that makes sense to me. And like, it's a cult. They're going to view a roof over your head. If you have nowhere else to turn, that's a place you can go. Territory Tory, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Anything to play with their big guns. Exactly. So, where was I? And then the National Guard overflight thermal images showed a hot spot inside the compound, possibly indicating a methamphetamine laboratory. All they had was a hot spot. That seems like quite the leap to go from hot spot to meth lab. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying a lot of other things are also possible. Although the original request for assistance was initially approved, the commander of the ATF Special Forces Detachment, can you still hear me? Sorry, something started to sound super different in the headphones. Where was I? The commander of the Special Forces Detachment questioned the request, and the ATF obtained only a training site at Fort Hood, Texas from February 25th to 27 with safety inspections for the training lanes and was given medical communications and training and equipment. So the DOD and the DEA did not show up. Yes, it's different. You can still hear me? Okay, good. Glad you can still hear me. The little mic thing is still making noises. Perfect. Loud and clear. Great. Slay. We really struggled Wi-Fi-wise this time. So this is kind of where we are going to leave off for today. We're still going to play the game in a second, but ATF agents attempted to enter the Branch Davidian compound on February 28th, 1993. So next week, we're going to talk all about the raid. We'll talk more about the undercover investigator guy. We have a lot more to talk about next week. Next week will probably be a little bit longer than usual. I'm going to let the sound play on your devices because I don't think you'll be able to hear it on mine. But that is kind of the rise of who the fuck this is, how the fuck they took over, all of that. So what version of the game do we want to play? Himalaya? Maybe we haven't done the Himalaya in a while. When is the podcast coming out? I actually don't know. I just kind of show up and record. I'm sorry. They're editing it right now. Let's do Himalaya. We're going to do Himalaya because there's tents, and that's where he made his followers live for that time. So if you like to join our lovely little trivia game here, you can either join, if you have me on your TV, you can join from your phone. If you have me on a computer, you can do this in a new window or a new tab. It is completely free to join this game. I am not even going to ask for your email address. You will not have to make an account. Don't have to do any of that. I would never do that to you. The last one was 2 weeks ago. I think it's almost done. No, I thought Sunny for President dropped pretty recently. Didn't Sunny for President drop kind of recently? But anyway, I'll go ahead and let you join the game. Whatever you put as your name will come up. Everyone will see. So if you don't want people to see your name, don't do that. They mentioned in the Criminal Minds episode that Rossi was at Waco and the ATF wouldn't listen to him. The ATF did not listen to a lot of people that should have been listened to. That's the review for next week. I've not kept track. Teaching, isn't it? I'll give you a couple more seconds to come to join the game. I think they come out weekly. Oh, state testing week. Yeah, but I do think, let me look when the most recent episode was. The most recent episode dropped on March 29th. It's titled Sunny for President. It's showing up on Spotify. I'll give you a couple more seconds to join. New podcast app is on the Patreon already. Nice. I think it's on Spotify and not on YouTube. Oh. Let me see what I can do about that. I'll do what I can. I'll take it up with management, if you will. I was having a snack, or did you give our freebie question? We haven't started the game yet. Usually it drops on Spotify a day or two after Patreon. Thank you. I'm very not involved with production here. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and start the game. And I'm sorry the stream was a little shorter. I just have a lot to do and I have to pack. And I'm sorry, but I love you and I'm going to miss you while I'm on vacation. But I'm actually not going to miss any days. Can you hear the game? I don't think you can hear the game. Let me know if you can hear the game. What did we learn about today? And also it'll still let you join. Oh, you can hear the game. Good. Oh, on your computer. Like, because you're in the game, I understand. Is anyone who's not in the game able to hear the game? I can, but on my page. Okay, that makes sense. That's what I thought would happen. We'll deal with this. We learned about David Koresh and the branch Davidians. What is the leader's, the toxic one, not the OG, original name? What's it, David Koresh's original name? Greg. I think you should hum the tune for us. David Koresh founded the branch Davidians. True or false? How did David rise to power in the group? This one has multiple right answers, I'll tell you that much. I like the sound it plays for right answers. It's fun, right? Do you guys want me to keep letting it play on your computers? I feel bad now. I feel like I was depriving you before. All of them are right. Where did David not recruit? Number 6, how old was David's first child bride victim, Rachel Jones? I can't remember this one. It's the worst one. The Cold War was too strong for him to go to the USSR. That's what I'm fucking talking about. Look at that background knowledge. What ingredient were members forbidden from consuming? Oh my god, a Waco parking lot in first place. Stop. Praise cheese. Do, 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 do. How many Bible studies occurred per day? Forgot to type the rest. It's per day. How many Bible studies occurred per day? Each day. This is a hard one. Oh, y'all did it fast though. It's 3. 3 per day. Just like meals. Except they probably didn't have 3 meals a day there. Shit, I got it wrong. Who contacted the ATF to investigate? I'm doing all right, teacher. Proud of you, baby. Also, look what someone made me. It's a needle point for chilies. I tried to put a command strip to hang it right by Mike, but it fell down. So it's just nice now. I need to figure out a better way to hang it up. I love how many parking lots are present today. Isn't this adorable? Oh, I have a P.O. box. It's on my Instagram. It's in my Instagram if you want to send me something. I'm really bad at checking it. Sorry. People that are always like, oh my God, I checked my P.O. box and they sent me 9 boxes that were overflowing. I'm like, who the fuck is sending you this stuff? So cute. What are we learning about next week? Alrighty, nice job, Savannah Life. Tanya Harding Shoelace in second place. We see Eleanor Burton, 95. Janice Ian, Emma, Becky, Kay, Maddie, Polly, bye, baby angel. Wasn't hugged enough as a child, so now I'm a cult leader. Waco parking lot, Allie, Victoria, Lizzie, Trash Sunsets, Tay, a vibrant ladybug, Trayvon, Barnes and Noble, and I will scroll through the rest. Nice job. But this was a great. Sorry, I had so many technical issues today. I need to get a new computer like fucking yesterday. Oh my God. Oh, I just got a bonus at work. Maybe I should use it for that. No, I have to use it for like rent and electricity. Anyway, I digress. What do you want to specifically see in Waco Part 2? I'm going to focus on why did it cut off my text? I'm going to focus on the raid, not so much from like a military perspective, but really the discrepancies between the FBI negotiators and the actual troop people, like gun people involved, and just kind of go through a timeline of the whole thing. George Roden, when Lois got down with some guy named Vern, could no longer inherit Mommy's cult. This is going on the thumbnail. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do. That's just thinking about how I did not feel like me. So thank you. Koresh being anti-milk, misredacted stream about the U.S. Just not a collab I want to have. You know what I mean? There's a lot of terrible people I'd be willing to take money from. David Koresh is not one of them. But thank you all for being here. We will be here exact same time Wednesday next week to talk about the actual standoff with the government. If you want to invite someone, you don't have to attend this to understand next week. Like I always, if I do 2 parts, they can stand alone. So next week we'll do like a recap of like the major thing that we talked about, and then we'll get into it. Next week I think it's going to be a much longer stream. I'm hoping that my work like chills the fuck out a little bit so I can focus on that. But I hope you have a great night. I'm going to go pack. Peace and blessings. Hope you feel great, look great. I'll see you next week on Wednesday. Same time, same place. If you want to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Love when people subscribe. And this week, I'm going to write down on my to-do list. So this is my prioritization. Getting ready for Waco Part 2. And then as long as that's all done, I'm going to figure out how to do the crowdfunding to get a better MacBook. I am also going to order an Ethernet cable right motherfucking now. So right now, Ethernet cable, I'm probably going to need to get an adapter. But you know what? This is actually great news because my accountant, the guy who does my taxes was just yelling because I never spent any money. Can't sub, but I followed. Very valid. Trevin AP, thank you. And Miss Andreas, thank you for subscribing. We love. Ethernet cable will be a game changer. I'm going to do that right motherfucking now. So I'm going to buy a new adapter. I'm going to buy a new Ethernet cable. I'm going to figure out the Wi-Fi modem is in that closet, so I can probably just run it across the floor and hopefully the cats don't eat it. And yeah, do that right now. Thank you for all staying with me through these dark days of no Ethernet. When I get a question wrong on time to climb, very valid. I should turn this into an emoji on my work Slack. But anyway, have a good night. Love you. See you next week. Thank you for your patience with technology.